The Bucks off season is done. Over. Fini.
Well, it's not over.
Well, the off season is.
I mean, they're in the off season. Now they're really in the off. They're on vacation mode.
Well, they're off, yeah, as in they got vacation because they get a lot of vacation. Yeah, there was a jailbreak as usual. Probably half those guys headed out of town, but finally happened, after practice on Thursday. A little longer than I thought. It was about an hour, 15, hour, 30 minutes. Virtually, well, a lot of guys did not practice. Let's just say that. And I got to be honest with you. If I'm the head coach and I get to the final day of the off-season workouts, and I know that I got guys that if I do nothing with them, they're at least, barring some catastrophe while they're away, they're at least going to start training camp with me. I ain't letting them practice either. You didn't see Antoine Winfield Jr., you didn't see Zion McCallum, didn't see Levante David, didn't see Baker Mayfield. He was standing on the sidelines. So a lot of guys were kind of sitting out, and it was kind of funny too because then you had dudes like Anthony Walker, it's Anthony Walker, were wearing Levante David's jersey. There was a jersey swap going on, so that was interesting. But the next time we see them, it's going to be a different vibe altogether. And the thing that Todd Bowles imparted upon them before they left was, hey, look, you guys got to stay in shape, but don't be doing it inside. A lot of guys go to gyms, and if they don't have one at home, his whole thing was make sure you go outside and run and get, continue to adapt to this heat because it's not going to get any cooler. So he wanted him to do that. It was fun, because on Thursday we got to talk to Mike Evans, and we really haven't all that much, since last year. And of course, his record tying 11th straight 1,000-yard season, which he got on the last play of the regular season, which is incredible. He needed, I think, 4 yards or 5 yards, and he got 9 or something like that on the final play. And he's in the final year. I think this goes overlooked a little bit. He's in the final year of his contract, but he'll be 32 when the season starts. He'll be 32 in August, and he's kind of asked about that, like, kind of you were thinking about the last year. I'm not even thinking about that, because he knows that they'll take care of him if he in fact wants to continue playing. But there's also a chance that this could be his last year. I think we have to go into the season saying you may not see Levante David or you may not see Mike Evans after this season. Like, this could be it. I haven't talked to him about his plans. I really don't know, but you can't pay everybody $20.5 million to play wide receiver, and especially if you were to miss more games. So all that's still to be pending, but Mike didn't see the least bit sort of thinking about it or concerned about it. He did tell a story, and this happened a while ago, but the Players Tribune did kind of a neat thing with the help of the Lincoln Motor Company, which is Ford actually. But during the off season, or during this, the past few weeks, really, they got together, Mike Evans and Jerry Rice, in Dallas, in a studio there, and they filmed what they did it for the Players Tribune, but it also kind of doubled a little bit as a commercial, if you will, for Ford, or Lincoln, more specifically. And it's kind of like when Harry met Sally. It was like when Mike, met the GOAT, and he had met him a long time before, briefly, sometime, he said, in 2017. But this is the first time he's actually met him and spent a lot of time with Jerry. And of course, he has good reason to, because there are only 2 men on the planet that have had 11 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons. But the video is cool. I posted it on TampaBay.com and Tampa Bay Times, and we asked him about it. And, of course, Mike is a big fan of Jerry's and very much aware of the guy whose record he's trying to take down. He just said, it was pretty cool. He said, I had met Jerry briefly in 2018, I think. It was really quick, but to be able to sit down and talk to the greatest receiver ever, it was pretty humbling, and the things he had to say about me, it was a great moment for me. And of course, I know Jerry very, very well. I have known him for a while, and did some work with him before he went in the Hall of Fame and whatnot. But, and I'll say this about Jerry, he's such a prideful guy and he holds so many receiving records, damn near all of them in the NFL. I mean, he played over 20 seasons, and yet, let me just say this, and he'll never say it, but these guys don't really like their records being broken. They truly don't. It's a point of pride for them. It's a sort of a career mark that they own, and they're not thrilled. But if somebody had to tie him and or break him, if Mike is able to do it again, this season, this is the kind of guy that I know Jerry respects and likes. And they had, like I said, they only had a brief encounter, but because of this, Players Tribune and whatnot, they got them together, and you can go on TampaBay.com, Tampa Bay Times, or on Twitter, and you can see this video, which is heavily edited, obviously, but it's pretty neat. It's sort of Mike, talking about Jerry and how much respect he has for him, and Jerry saying, stuff like, this is surreal, like for me to be sitting here with you. And Mike's like, you think it's surreal for me? Believe me, like you're the greatest of all time. But they go in on the chalkboard, they talk about route running, they talk about different things about their games. And it's fairly brief, but in the end, it's just kind of a mutual admiration society. And, there's only two guys on the planet that have done this, when you really stop and think about it. 11 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, so hard to do. And I think, Mike was he just said it was humbling. He said some of the things he said about me, was just a great moment for sure. And at the end of the sort of the broadcast or the commercial, whatever it ends up being, Mike presents Jerry with a pair of gloves that he owns as well, and the gloves basically commemorate the fact that they both have this record, and they're both had 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and it's got their signatures stenciled in the two gloves. It's just really cool. It's a well done production. I thought the dialogue was interesting. It wasn't that long, but it's something for these guys to make history. And I think Mike is truly humble now. He can break that record and do it for a 12th straight season if he can stay healthy and get 1,000 yards. And he said, yeah, hopefully he'll do it a little quicker than last year. I mean, literally the last play of the regular season. And of course, one of the goosebump moments that I've ever experienced, maybe next to, Ronnie Barber returning a interception 92 yards for a touchdown against Philadelphia, or certain plays like that. But this one, because of the reaction of the fans, because of his teammates just, sort of, running out and absorbing him, the Bucs did a good job of following him all the way to the locker room. He's practically hyperventilating because he's just so pumped that he did this. And I think it's really cool that they were able to get together. So that was fun, talking to Mike. And Mike said, and he's done this before, but he said, this is probably the best receiver room I've ever been a part of. Whoa.
Yeah, I think it's a good receiver room. I think he's been part of better.
How about potentially the best?
No question. I mean, could Jalen McMillan become a really, really, really good receiver in this league? Can Emeka Ibuka do the same?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are they second and first year guys and we don't know exactly what they're going to be yet? No, we don't.
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly
Right.
what they're going to do as rookies this year. And McMillan, of course, in his second year. And then he mentioned Tez Johnson, who's a 7th-round pick. I don't know. I think that Tez is primarily going to be a kick returner, so I wouldn't put him in that mix, although he is a receiver. I know what Mike is saying, though. Like, they're deep, and because of Emeka being a first-round pick and he can play all three positions, he's incredibly cerebral. He gets ball. He's deep into his playbook already. They're playing him at a bunch of different positions, and he's showing up every single day out there making plays for Baker Mayfield. Baker and him already seem to have a lot of trust, and Baker knows where he's going to be on his spot because he's such a good route runner. And you're starting to see that happen now, or at least we did these last 3 days of OTAs. But I get what Mike is saying. Mike said, he goes, look, I've probably said that before, right? But I think he means it. I think he has a lot of confidence in those guys. And, for that reason, you're going to see 3 and sometimes all 4 of them on the football field together.
But let me take you back to 2020 or 2021.
Yeah.
When your receiver room was Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, you had Rob Gronkowski as your tight end, and you had Antonio Brown.
Yeah. For 8 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, and you had him in 2020. Yeah, I mean, you had him for 8 games in 2020, 7 in 2021 before he
got
ended
suspended
his time in Tampa Bay. Yes,
and decided to take his clothes off in the Meadowlands. Yeah,
but that receiver room. I mean, Antonio
really
Brown's. I mean, Gronkowski's a Hall of Famer. Mike Evans a Hall of Famer.
Antonio Brown is too. Now, and we'll get into some of his off-field problems, but the only thing that can keep him out of the Hall of Fame is what he has done off the field, that people will be so turned off about it, and the fact that a lot of the teams he played for, he was a cancer. That was not the case, at least his first year here. His first year here, he moves in with Brady and, he starts catching passes, and he transformed that offense. I mean, they getting a third guy that could create one-on-ones and get vertical, and then they just started attacking down the field with reckless abandon almost. And I don't know that they win the Super Bowl without AB, because it's easier to try to contain 2 receivers on the outside, or one in the slot and one on the outside. When you get that third guy going, now you got a problem. Now the matchups are not good. And and Brown, despite his age and all that he had gone through, could still absolutely take the top off the defense. And Tom trusted him. He didn't trust certain guys like Scotty Miller in the end, or anybody that would drop the football. He always trusted AB. He always knew that AB was going to win the route, and AB played great, and then he didn't, and then he got in trouble for, the fake vax cards and all of that. And then when he came back, his attitude was just done a reversal. He was so in a jar and upset because he didn't get paid, and that led to eventually him doing what he did in the Meadowlands, taking off his jersey and quitting and stuff like that. AB was one of those guys that, and I wrote those stories looking that the Bucs weren't happy about them, and we can debate whether or not this country got it right with vax cards, or whether businesses should have required them. But it was the Wild West, man. In some ways, nobody knew just how bad or how contagious these things were. So they did the best they could, and they started the season without fans, and all of that. But regardless, AB was a force. And then when he came back the next year, I think he expected just to, pick up where he left off and sort of, maybe even be the number 2 receiver and that sort of thing. And then it didn't work out. He got suspended. When he was out, he was kind of, mad about it. And then he came back. He realized he was going to get his bonus money because he missed too many games. And, the attitude was bad. And so they had to go their separate ways. It was not going to continue after he, and there's a great shot of right as Antonio's taking off his pads and his shirt, of Mike Evans almost physically trying to keep it on, to restrain him, knowing Mike knows that if you do this, your career's over. Forget about playing here anymore. You're probably not going to play anywhere. And he hasn't. He has not. He says he's run through all his money. This altercation that happened really, I think, last week sometime, people heard a couple shots. They saw, at one point.
Well, let's get into that because we haven't. Yeah. That just broke tonight as we're recording this. But
that's right.
Antonio Brown now wanted, it seems like, for attempted murder.
Attempted murder is the charge, which is just incredible. I mean, I read that 2 or 3 times to make sure that the source was right, or it wasn't a prank, or it wasn't, fake news, that kind of thing. And no, they've arrested him. The investigations lasted a couple of weeks. I remember when it happened, he was at a fight and he got into an altercation with a guy, and there was maybe punches thrown, and then you heard 2 shots. Brown didn't really have a gun. They sent him home, but as investigators continued on, they came to realize, obviously, that guess what? he's at fault here. He apparently stole a security guard's gun and fired it twice at this guy. So they have now I guess, are they in process arresting him or have arrested him? I'm not sure which.
Yeah, I mean, I don't recall exactly where it is now, and by the time you hear this podcast, it could have changed anyway. But
Yeah, but it's awful. And look, I Brown's been on the air before many different places and said that he's run out of money. He's said a lot of things, right? Um, I'm not saying you should feel sorry for them, but it almost had a feeling of inevitability that he was going to hurt somebody or get very hurt himself. And now the latter is true because he could end up doing time if convicted. Obviously, we'll see where this leads with AB, but it's just an awful story, and just one of those guys. For whatever reason, you just feel like his life is not going to turn around and go the direction that I think a lot of people were hoping it would. Let's put it that way. We'll continue our discussion here about Bucks receivers, but first, I want you guys to get on down to International Plaza Mall and go see our friends at Breitling Boutique. The Breitling company has been making the best Swiss watches now for, I don't know, over 140 years. They've been in International Plaza Mall for more than 5 years. If you're familiar, or even if you're not with the mall, go to the center and look upstairs. You're going to find the Breitling company, Breitling Boutique store. Go in there. It is unique. The customer service is second to none. They're used to dealing with a lot of celebrities, professional athletes. You're likely to see a Buccaneer or two if you hang out in the store. And I encourage you to do just that. Take your time, right? Let them pour you a drink. Let them tell you about the products that they have that would be right for you, whether that's the Chronomat watches or the Navitimers for men. The sports watches they have also for women, for your wife, for your girlfriend, especially if she's on the go. These things are durable, they're beautiful, and they come in just a ton of different colored wristbands as well. And listen, they've been doing this thing now for a while. If you're an NFL fan, there are 32 teams in the NFL, and there are 32 Chronomat watches that they have that the Breitling company has made while supplies last. These things have the team colors on the face, the logo. They're sensational. Go to tampabay.com. You're likely to see the Bucks team watch as well. It's Breitling Boutique. They're an International Plaza Mall. I encourage all of you to go down and check it out and get that timepiece that you deserve. Breitling Boutique. Let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. We're talking about the Bucks, being, at least in Mike's eyes, maybe arguably the best receiving core they've had, and Godwin is a big part of that. And of course, we're waiting to see just how quickly he can come back from the dislocated ankle and the fracture and that. We saw him out there outside. He's been working inside. Seems to be walking pretty well. That's a long way from playing football. So we'll know in 5 or 6 or 7 weeks, whenever they get back for you know training camp, essentially, just where he stands at that point. And then we'll kind of go from there. But there was an interesting post, and I'd written a story. Unfortunately, it was actually appeared on the Sunday of the game that he got injured by the Ravens, and that was last year. And it felt, not that I felt responsible, it felt a little like a jinx though, because he had talked about kind of how hard it had been returning from his knee ligament, injury, how long it had taken him to feel like himself again. And at that time, when I wrote it, and on the day of his injury, he was leading the NFL with 50 catches. He had 50 catches through like 7 or 8 games. He had 5 touchdowns, and then he gets his ankle turned backwards, and his season is over. But when we were doing that interview, he talked about kind of what a tough year it had been because he lost his father, who was everything to him, and he used to call him half man, half monster. He called him the manster. His dad did when he talked about Chris, and he was the kind of man that I think a lot of people would want for a dad. So supportive all the time, especially of his football career, and it was a traumatic thing, as it is anytime you lose a parent. But when I talked to Chris, he's like, physically he's starting to feel himself again. but he also talked about losing his father. And so here we are. Oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 months since I talked to him, 7 maybe, and he announced, I guess yesterday, that he is going to be honoring his dad in the only way that he knows how to honor him. He talked about what an impact he had on his life, and now that Chris is a new father, how he learned and had a great role model to pattern, his raising of his child. And so he said, for all those reasons and to honor his dad, on the back of his jersey this year and going forward, it'll say not just Godwin, it's going to say Godwin Jr. because his dad's name also was Christopher, apparently. So I just thought that's we're just a couple days from Father's Day. Man, that really got to me. That really is a great gesture for sure.
It is, and we actually got a good mailbag question about this, or sort of stemming off this. It's from Patrick, who said, "First, happy Father's Day to both of us." So he saw Godwin adding Junior to his last name to honor his late father. A very classy move.
Yeah.
Do you see any such path where Chris Godwin Jr. could earn a gold jacket one day?
My first initial response would be no. I don't know that he has. I know he's the second best receiver in franchise history. I mean that goes without saying. I don't know that he has the body of work in terms of Pro Bowls. He did win a Super Bowl. Part of the thing that's going to hurt him, quite frankly, and it's not impossible for two receivers to be in the Hall of Fame, Stallworth and Lynn Swan are, for example. I think Reggie Wayne will be in there at one point with Marvin Harrison. But I just think that they have sort of had to spread the ball around. They've been unselfish, both of them, Chris and Mike, in the interest of winning games. But in terms of pure numbers and Pro Bowls and all decade and some of the landmarks that a lot of those guys have to hit, especially at receiver, I don't think Chris has it. Mike has a record that has tied Jerry Rice that we talked about and could own it by himself. If he has 1,000 yards this year, it's 12 straight seasons of 1,000 yards or more, which breaks Jerry's record of 11. It's also already the most seasons in a row to start a career with 1,000 yards every season. So it's indisputable that, to me anyway, that Mike is a Hall of Fame player and possibly a first ballot guy. But I haven't looked at the numbers. I'm guessing that Chris hasn't had. He was on path for it at one point. I think he had 4,000 or 5,000 yard seasons, but I don't know that he's going to rack up the yardage per se, or the Pro Bowls in particular.
So in 8 seasons, he's got 7,266 yards.
Yeah, so just under 1,000 yards.
He's got 4 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah,
out of those 8. Now he's got a lot of injuries too. He's currently 148th all time in receiving. If he were to get 1,050 yards this year, he'd move into the 100th spot.
Yeah.
So he could get to the top 100 this year if he's healthy and get 1,000, just over 1,000 yards.
Right.
But top 100 is not going to get you in the Hall of Fame per se.
No, it won't. And
now a second Super Bowl.
Well, that won't hurt him.
With two different quarterbacks as being a receiver, and he's impactful in that can definitely help.
Yeah, that surely would help.
And how long is he going to play, and how healthy is he going to be the rest of his career?
Right. I mean, unfortunately, injuries have been a big part of his career, and even though he came back from the 3 torn knee ligaments, he was not the same guy. Not until last year. I thought last year was the first I've seen him. They moved him back in the slot, where he looked at home, felt at home, and had something cataclysmic happen to him. But I think receivers, one of those things where you have to have absurd numbers, and they're going up all the time because of the rule changes, and it's a passing league, and what you have to have now is so different than what you've needed before. If you have to think about it too, I always say this: if you got to really think about it, he's probably not a Hall of Famer. I think he's in the Hall of very, very good, but I don't think he's going to wear a gold jacket one day. Okay, I'm not surprised necessarily that Nikita Kucherov did not win the Hart Trophy as the league's MVP. I am surprised who did win it, though.
Well, he finished third. Did not finish second. He finished third. Leon Draisaitl was second. And Connor Hellebuck, the goalie, who also won the Vezina Trophy,
crazy,
won the MVP. Andrei Vasilevsky, by the way, finished second in the Vezina Trophy. Connor Hellebuck got 31 of the 32 first-place votes. Vazzy got one. Vazzy got most of the second-place votes. So,
if you know, who's the last goaltender to win the MVP?
I believe it was Carey Price about a decade ago.
Montreal, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd have to look that. I haven't looked it up, but I'm pretty sure that's the last.
Sounds right.
Yep.
But it's rare, right? It's extremely rare.
Yeah, well, because a lot of people will say, hey, the goalies have their own award. We don't need to vote them for MVP.
You give them the Vezina, yeah.
Also goalies, don't play 20 games a year, 20 to 25, 30 games a year. Depending on your goal. Now, Hellebuck's one like Vazzy that plays quite a few. They're usually the top two in games played if they're both healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Connor Hellebuck got off to a tremendous start to the season. He finished with a great season, and they were talking MVP with months to go in the season. If you want to go just stats wise, Andrei Vasilevsky was very close to Hellebuck by the end of the year.
Yeah,
Vazzy didn't start off great. He caught him. I mean, not in wins, and Winnipeg won the President's Trophy, had the most wins, so Connor Hellebuck had the most. But you look at all the other stats, Vazzy wasn't far behind. It wasn't like Connor Hellebuck was so far ahead of every other goalie.
Yeah.
But that narrative from 2 months to go in the season was Hellebuck's been so good in goalie that he should get the MVP. And look, he had a tremendous season. I'm not taking anything away from Connor at all.
Yeah.
And it's a regular season award. It doesn't count the playoffs where he wasn't very good again. But, to me, and Draisaitl's a great player too. Kuch had the best season. Now, we talked about last week, the players voted the Ted Lindsay Award. Kuch won that award.
Kuch, yeah. And
he was the only one that was a finalist for both. For the players, Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar were the other two.
Do the writers vote for the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Well, there's your issue. What do they know?
Yep.
That's very disappointing, but yeah, I think he deserved it. I mean,
he won the Art Ross for the second straight year, third time.
Yeah. So the players know he's the best player.
He should have been the Hart Trophy winner last year, I believe. They gave it to McKinnon because it was, quote, his turn.
His time, yeah, exactly.
Because he had.
So Nikita goes out and does the same thing or better, and then he finishes third. So. Yeah, that didn't.
But so the NHL also unveiled their two all-star teams, what they call first team and second. It's basically like in the NFL, first team All-Pro, second team All-Pro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Kucherov makes the first team.
Okay, fair enough.
Vasilevsky, Hedman, and Hagel make the second team.
Okay.
So of the 12 guys on the two teams, the Lightning get 4.
That's incredible. It shows how good they still are, and they've rebuilt with some young players around them. I mean, the window's still there. I don't know for how long, but man, they got some really good hockey players.
They need some more depth pieces, and that's why they've re-signed Yanni Gord.
Right.
And Oliver Bjorkstrand will be back for another year. He had 1 year left on his contract still. They're still, trying to build up those depth pieces because we know the top-end players are fantastic. Whether it's Hedman, Vasilevsky, Kuch, Braden Point, Hagel. We know those guys are tremendous. Ryan McDonough defensively, who, should have gotten, the Norris Trophy for the defenseman. It's now become an offensive award. I mean, the 3 players this year that are
defensive
finalists
players who score
were the top 3 scorers. But McDonough may be one of he's one of the best defenseman. Period. He's just not going to score a ton of points. He did get a couple votes, fourth place votes in the Norris Trophy, and Hedman finished 5th in that one. But the talent's there for the Lightning. We're watching Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. We're recording this.
Right, it's a great game. It's tied in the third. Yeah.
Yeah, Florida was up 3-0. 3-0, yeah. And so now Edmonton's come back.
Started with a power play, yeah.
We're in the third period. It's tied, so Edmonton wins this game. Now it becomes a best of 3. If Florida wins, they're up 3-1.
Florida wins, I think it's pretty much over. And, boy, Florida's really good, too, by the way. Despite blowing a 3-0 lead, they're very, very good.
They're the best team in the NHL.
I think so, and I think they're going to win this series. And I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but I think they're going to win this series. And I
I don't
think
know
that the
if
Lightning
if
have.
Edmonton wins this game. Now it's a best
Well,
of 3 with 2 games in
yeah, I'd give them
Edmonton,
life. Yeah, yeah,
but 2 games in Edmonton of the 3.
yeah. I don't know. The Lightning's going to have to do some stuff to specifically beat the Panthers. I mean, that's who you have to be better than at minimum. They're the best hockey team in the world, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If they go back to back, now you're looking at history. So it's exactly what the Lightning did, and we're trying to extend that, and haven't been able to. But boy, that's a good hockey team. It's just they do everything right. They have the goaltending, they forecheck, they score on special teams. You give them a power play, they're going to put it in the back of your net. Like they just do everything right.
Yep.
And their style of play is really, really good. So yeah, we'll watch the NSL playoffs. The Rays are beginning their series against the Mets in New York.
Yep.
Little interleague play there going on.
Yep.
So,
USL Super League Championship is Saturday night here in
yes,
Tampa
sir.
Bay at Blake High School.
Tampa Bay is back. Glad you mentioned it. The wife is happy. She did the site tour today. Not going to say anything is etched in stone, but I would say if you go to the game, you're likely to see some of Tampa Bay's more famous athletes. Let's put it that way.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah. There's some dignitaries coming, I think, including the mayor of Tampa may be there. It's a big deal, man. It's their first championship of the league, and Fort Lauderdale is coming up to play the Tampa Bay Sun, and we'll see if there is any sun, see if the weather will break long enough for them to play, because it's scheduled, I think, sometime Saturday evening. Hopefully the showers will start to abate a little bit. We had my wife's father came into town tonight, and I think he got in like a little after 6, but because the rain is just everywhere, and they can't go out on the tarmac with lightning strikes in the area, and so you basically are sitting there waiting for at a luggage carousel for about an hour.
Yep.
And they finally got it out, but yeah, you can set your watch to it, man. Up at my place about 4 o'clock every day in Lutz, here come the showers from the east, and there's some pretty wicked thunderstorms this time of year.
Yeah,
So,
we got off. We didn't get any really tonight, but last night, oh my,
yeah,
we had heavy storms.
East Tampa, yeah. Interesting. I don't
So.
think I had any at night, but then I didn't look. So,
Yep.
Well, if the ground was wet, as it's going to be plenty of rain, I can turn my sprinklers off. That's a great thing, and kind of go from there.
And then it's Father's Day, so the U.S. Open is this weekend.
That's right.
JJ Spawn leading at 4 under after one day.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot. I didn't see a lot of huge names on the top 10 leaderboard or top 5 or whatever it was.
Brooks Koepka's tied for third.
Yeah.
Like McElroy struggled.
Scotty Scheffler was kind of in it, but I don't know if he's in 10 or 15 at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Spieth even so he's tied for 11th. And McElroy, like I said, I was watching more early in the day than late. DeChambeau struggled; he was 3 over. Scheffler
the U.S.
finished 3
Opens,
over.
the courses at the U.S. Opens, the way they're set up, are enough to make you leave golf.
Oh, the rough is just awful.
It's you can't hack out of it, and sometimes the greens are so fast that it's hard to control your speed, and you might 4-putt on a green, but it's a tough tournament, and it's really until you get to Sunday on the back 9, I don't think you're going to know who's really going to win it. I think anybody's capable of blowing up, anybody's capable of falling back. So remains to be seen. What's good about it is I'll get to take a few golf naps this weekend. I don't know what it is, man. Like, how people buy these wave machines and these ambient sound machines so they can help them fall asleep? All I need is Jim Nance. Hello, friends.
Well, this one's on NBC, so it's Mike Tirico.
It'll be Mike Tirico or Dan...
Terry Gannon.
Yeah, Dan Hicks or somebody, right? Or is that NBC? Not sure. Yeah, Dan Hicks. But regardless, golf naps are the best. They just are the best. Can't explain it. That's just the way I feel. So, yeah, it should be a interesting weekend in sports. As we mentioned, Rays at the Mets. NFL players, be careful out there. They're on the loose, and hopefully they won't interrupt my my vacation, such as it is, or time away from the Bucks. I'm still going to be writing stories. I got a bunch of them coming out, including one on Sunday. If you want to check that out in Tampa Bay Times, check out the Mike Evans story as well, and some video we posted of him on TampaBay.com. And go see our friends at Breitling Boutique. They're waiting for you there, man. It's a tremendous store. You deserve a great timepiece, and I'm telling you, the Breitling company makes the best watches around. The Chronomats and Navitimers, watches for your wife or girlfriend. They're going to love it. Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. And we appreciate it if you let them know you heard about it here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Thanks for listening. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of Tampa Bay Times. Have a great weekend, everybody.